By the end of the 1982 American League Championship Series, Fred Lynn had produced the kind of performance that should have carried a team into the World Series. Across 5 games, he collected 11 hits in 18 at-bats. He hit .611, drove in 5 runs, and homered against the Milwaukee Brewers. Yet when the series ended at County Stadium, it was Milwaukee advancing. The Brewers celebrated inside that concrete bowl, while the California Angels went home. And then came one of baseball's strangest honors. Lynn was named the series MVP, the first player ever to win that award for a losing team. It was his second MVP trophy. The first had come 7 years earlier, during a rookie season in Boston that immediately placed him in baseball history. That 1975 award became the foundation of his identity. The one in 1982 became an unusual footnote. The distance between those 2 trophies contains the real story of Fred Lynn. Because Lynn did not simply explode onto the scene and disappear. He would reach another regular season peak after his famous rookie year. He would keep hitting for power into his mid-30s, and on the stages where baseball focused its attention most intensely, he repeatedly became one of the most dangerous players on the field. But the career people expected in 1975 never arrived in the form they imagined. To understand why, you have to go back before Boston, before the Green Monster, and before Lynn and Jim Rice became the young faces of a Red Sox pennant winner. The New York Yankees drafted Lynn in 1970, but he chose college instead. He went to the University of Southern California, joining a program in the middle of one of the great runs in college baseball history. USC won the College World Series in 1971. Then it won again in 1972, and again in 1973. By the time Lynn entered professional baseball, winning at a high level was already familiar territory. He had also represented the United States at the 1971 Pan American Games, earning a silver medal. He was not arriving from obscurity, and he was not being rushed into a world he had never seen. His amateur career had given him years of meaningful baseball before his first major league at-bat. The Red Sox selected him in the second round of the 1973 draft, 41st overall. From there, the path was quick. AA Bristol in 1973, AAA Pawtucket in 1974, and Boston by September. His life away from the field was changing at the same time. Lynn had met Dee Dee Minkle while they were students at El Monte High School. She was a cheerleader, and the two married in February 1974. 7 months later, Lynn was standing in a major league batter's box. His debut came on September 5 against Milwaukee. He went hitless in one at-bat, an ordinary beginning that gave no indication of what was coming. Over the rest of that September, however, Lynn hit .419 in 43 at-bats. It was only 15 games, too brief to establish anything permanent. But it gave Boston a glimpse of a center fielder who appeared unusually comfortable against major league pitching. Then came 1975. Lynn was 23 years old, and from the opening months of his first full season, he did more than hold a place in Boston's lineup. He became one of the best players in the American League. He hit for average, he hit for power, he drove balls into the gaps and covered center field well enough to win a Gold Glove. By the end of the season, Lynn was batting .331 with 21 home runs and 105 RBIs. He led the league in doubles, runs scored, and slugging percentage. Only Rod Carew, who hit .359 for Minnesota, finished ahead of him in the batting race. Those numbers described a complete player. Lynn was not receiving special attention merely because he was young. He was driving Boston's offense while playing one of the most demanding defensive positions on the field. On June 18, that talent erupted in one afternoon at Tiger Stadium. The old ballpark in Detroit rose in stacked decks around the field, its upper level hanging close over the right field seats.
A left-handed hitter could stand at the plate and see that overhang waiting beyond the outfield. The sounds stayed trapped inside the enclosed park, the public address system, the sharp report of contact, and the crowd reacting as a ball climbed toward the upper reaches of the stadium. Lynn hit 3 home runs that day. By the time it was over, he had driven in 10 runs and accumulated 16 total bases.
A rookie had taken over a major league game almost by himself, producing one of those box scores that looked like a printing error when it reached the rest of the country. For fans whose first baseball summers came in the 1970s, this was how a performance could grow larger overnight. Maybe you heard the score on the radio before bed. Maybe you found the line in the morning paper and ran your finger across it a second time. 3 home runs, 10 RBIs. Long before every at-bat could be replayed on demand, the numbers had to build the picture in your mind. That game did more than decorate Lynn's rookie season. It made the scale of his arrival impossible to miss. And he was not arriving alone. Jim Rice was also a rookie in Boston's outfield, and the two became known as the Gold Dust Twins. The nickname captured the feeling around the Red Sox that summer. Boston had not merely found one gifted young player, it appeared to have found the core of its future all at once. For a franchise carrying decades of championship frustration, that mattered. Lynn and Rice gave Boston youth, power, and the possibility that the team's next great era had already begun. Lynn's recognition spread beyond New England. He was eventually named the Associated Press Athlete of the Year, an honor that showed how far his rookie season had reached outside the daily baseball audience. But before the awards were handed out, there was a pennant to chase. Boston won the American League East and advanced through the playoffs to face the Cincinnati Reds in the World Series. The matchup placed Lynn's first full major league season inside one of the most enduring championship series baseball would produce. When the series moved through Fenway Park, the setting already carried generations of memory. The grandstand sat close to the field. The left field wall made every high fly ball a moment of calculation. October baseball arrived beneath the light standards and across the uneven dimensions that made Fenway unlike any other place in the game. For viewers who watched that series when it happened, the memory may begin before any particular pitch. The television warming the room, the network graphics, the crowd packed beneath the roof, and that narrow green field appearing on the screen night after night. Baseball in 1975 did not feel distant from the people watching it. A World Series game became part of the house. Lynn belonged in that picture immediately. He went 7 for 25 in the series, homered, and drove in 5 runs. He had gone from a September call-up to the center of baseball's biggest stage in barely a year. Boston and Cincinnati carried the series through 7 games. The Red Sox ultimately lost, leaving the championship unfinished. Yet the defeat did little to reduce what Lynn had become. He had helped take Boston to the final game of the season, and he had done it while playing with the polish of an established star. Afterward, the awards confirmed the magnitude of it. Lynn won American League Rookie of the Year. He won the Gold Glove in center field, and he won the league's Most Valuable Player award. No major leaguer had ever won Rookie of the Year and MVP in the same season. That distinction would remain his alone until Ichiro Suzuki matched it in 2001. In 1975, however, there was no precedent for what Lynn had done. He had begun his first full season as a promising young outfielder and ended it with an achievement no player in Major League history could claim. It was a dream beginning, but it also created a difficult standard. From then on, every season could be measured against a year that had included a batting race, a Gold Glove, a pennant, a World Series, and 2 of baseball's most important individual awards. Ordinary development was no longer available to him. A very good season could look like a decline.
An injury could feel like evidence that the magic had passed. Even another elite year might struggle to replace the image already fixed in the public memory. Fred Lynn at 23, patrolling center field at Fenway while Boston returned to the World Series. The natural assumption was that this was the opening chapter of a long Red Sox career. Lynn believed that too. He came up through the organization, became a star in its uniform, and expected to spend his entire career in Boston. For the moment, there was little reason to imagine anything else.
But 1975 would prove to be more than a beginning. It became a shadow, one large enough to conceal some of the best baseball Fred Lynn had yet to play. What followed was still exceptional baseball, even if it could no longer feel unprecedented. Lynn remained an all-star in each of his 6 full seasons with Boston. He added 3 more Gold Gloves, giving him 4 in all as a Red Sox. The grace in center field remained one of his signatures. The quick first move, the ground covered in the gaps, the willingness to keep going when the warning track told an outfielder to slow down. That willingness came with a price. Lynn played with a fearlessness that sometimes put his body in places it could not absorb safely. He broke a rib crashing into an outfield wall. His knees were injured while breaking up double plays. Across 17 major league seasons, he never played more than 150 games in any one of them, and he topped 140 only 4 times. Availability became the quiet limitation running beneath the brilliance. He could do nearly everything a center fielder was asked to do, but the way he did it made uninterrupted seasons difficult to sustain. Still, by the end of the decade, Lynn had not merely remained productive, he had developed into an even more complete offensive player. In 1979, Fenway Park again became the setting for one of the finest seasons in baseball. The ballpark was still an intimate, irregular place, with the manual scoreboard built into the green monster and center field widening into spaces that demanded both speed and nerve. Fans packed beneath the low grandstand roof, close enough for the field to feel less like a stage than an extension of the seats. Every ball toward left carried the possibility of striking the wall. Every drive into the right center gap gave Lynn room to run. Through that summer, his numbers kept climbing. He reached base at a .423 rate. He slugged .637. His on-base plus slugging percentage finished at 1.059, the best in the American League. He also led the league in adjusted OPS, a measure that accounts for the offensive environment around a player. And Lynn won the batting title at .333. If you followed baseball then, perhaps you remember watching batting races develop, one morning at a time. The newspaper arrived, the league leaders appeared in narrow columns, and a few points gained or lost could change the order. In 1979, Lynn's name finished at the top. Modern measurements make the season look even stronger. Baseball Reference credits him with 8.9 wins above replacement, the highest total among American League position players that year. In simple terms, it estimates how much more value he provided than a readily available replacement. A total near 9 represents an MVP caliber season, the kind only a handful of players can produce. By several measures, 1979 was the finest individual season of Fred Lynn's career, yet he finished 4th in the MVP voting. His 1975 season had come with a pennant, a World Series, the excitement of being a rookie, and the novelty of making history. The 1979 season had no equally convenient label. It was quieter in public memory, even though Lynn led the league in batting average, on-base percentage, slugging percentage, OPS, adjusted OPS, and WAR. That difference is central to understanding his career. The season everyone remembered first was not necessarily the season in which he played his best. Lynn hit for the cycle on May 13, 1980, adding one more signature performance to his Boston years.
He won another Gold Glove that season and made his 6th straight All-Star team. Across 7 seasons with the Red Sox, including his brief 1974 debut, he batted .308 with 124 home runs and 521 RBIs. Those were the numbers of a franchise player. Lynn believed that was what he would remain. Years later, he described the connection directly. "I'm a Red Sox," he said. "I didn't want to leave the Red Sox." He had entered their system in 1973. Boston had been his first professional organization, his first major league city, and the place where he became one of the most recognizable players in the game. "I thought I'd end up spending my entire career in Boston," Lynn said. Instead, in January 1981, the Red Sox traded him. Lynn and pitcher Steve Renko went to the California Angels.
Boston received Frank Tanana, Jim Dorsey, and Joe Rudy. In the language of the transaction wire, it was a 5-player deal between American League clubs. In the shape of Lynn's life and career, it was the end of the future he had assumed would continue. He was returning to Southern California, where he had attended high school and USC. The Angels were a strong organization with owner Gene Autry, whom Lynn regarded highly. He did not present the new club as a place unworthy of him. "It was tough," he said, "even though I was going to a great team and playing for a great owner in Gene Autry." The difficulty was in the leaving. Then his body made the transition harder. A knee injury limited Lynn to 76 games in 1981. He batted .219 with 5 home runs and 31 RBIs, easily the weakest full-season numbers of his career to that point. The contrast was jarring. In Boston, Lynn had been an all-star every year and had batted better than .300 across his Red Sox tenure. In his first season after the trade, he could not stay on the field long enough to establish any rhythm, and when he did play, the results no longer resembled the player people knew. At 29 years old, the first great movement of his career appeared to have ended all at once. A new uniform, an injured knee, and a batting average more than 100 points below the one he had posted 2 years earlier. But that first season in California did not forecast the rest of his time there. In 1982, Lynn returned to 138 games and batted .299. He hit 21 home runs, beginning a run of power that would last much longer than the popular version of his career usually allows. The Angels won the American League West and advanced to the championship series against Milwaukee. For Lynn, it was his first postseason baseball since the 1975 World Series. The series went the full 5 games. County Stadium in Milwaukee was a broad, concrete park with tiers of seats curving around the field and October sound gathering beneath its roof. The Brewers had spent the season overwhelming opponents with one of baseball's most powerful lineups. Now they stood between California and the World Series. Across those 5 games, Lynn kept reaching base. 11 hits in 18 at-bats, a home run, 5 runs driven in, a .611 batting average in a series where every plate appearance carried the weight of a season. Then, Milwaukee won the deciding game. The sound inside County Stadium belonged to the Brewers. Their season continued. California's ended 1 victory short of the World Series. Only after the outcome was settled did Lynn receive the award for the series' most valuable player. No player from a losing team had ever been selected before. The trophy recognized exactly what had happened on the field. Fred Lynn had been the outstanding player in the series. It could not change where the Angels were going next. That was the contradiction in the opening of this story. Lynn's 1982 ALCS was not a faded star briefly returning to view. It was one of the greatest performances of his career, delivered in October, 7 years after the rookie season that supposedly explained everything about him. and there was more to come. Lynn returned to the All-Star Game in 1983, his 9th consecutive selection. The game was played at Comiskey Park in Chicago, the city where he had been born. Under the lights of the old ballpark, with the American and National Leagues still treating the exhibition as a point of pride, Lynn came to bat with the bases loaded. He hit a grand slam. It was the first grand slam in All-Star Game history, another achievement that belonged to Lynn alone when he produced it. Over his All-Star career, he hit 4 home runs, a total surpassed only by Stan Musial's 6. The rookie record was historic. The All-Star Grand Slam was historic. Between them sat the losing team ALCS MVP and the overlooked excellence of 1979. Lynn had a remarkable ability to leave singular marks on the game, even as the larger arc of his career became harder to summarize. His Angels years never fully restored the continuity he had possessed in Boston. After batting .299 in 1982, he hit .272 in 1983 and .271 in 1984. Yet he continued to supply power, defense, and all-star level moments. In 4 seasons with California, he hit 71 home runs and drove in 270 runs. Following the 1984 season, he became a free agent. Many expected Lynn to remain on the West Coast. Instead, he accepted the best offer and signed with the Baltimore Orioles for 5 years and $6.8 million. Baltimore was trying to build another winner through established veterans. The Orioles also signed Lee Lacy and Don Ace, and those free agent moves cost the organization 3 of its top 5 picks in the 1985 draft. Owner Edward Bennett Williams was spending aggressively in pursuit of a championship. The plan failed. Baltimore finished last in 1986 and again in 1988. Lynn had joined an organization attempting to contend, but his years there became part of its decline. He remained dangerous at the plate. Lynn hit 87 home runs in 434 games as an Oriole. From 1982 through 1988, his yearly home run totals were 21, 22, 23, 23, 23, 23, and 25. 7 consecutive seasons with more than 20 home runs. There was no explosive spike hiding inside that run, no single season carrying the others. It was steady power across 2 teams and through his 30s. While the image of the young center fielder at Fenway remained frozen in 1975, the older Lynn kept producing year after year. Baltimore never gave those numbers a championship setting. The most remembered detail from his Orioles tenure instead became something far smaller: his complaints about the team's cap.
Lynn called the smiling cartoon bird on the front the hat with the funny little duck on it. The comment offered a flash of his personality, but it also seemed appropriate to a period in which player and place never became fully identified with one another. Lynn wore the uniform for nearly 4 seasons and hit with real power, yet Baltimore never displaced Boston as the team attached to his name. Away from baseball, his life changed again. Lynn had divorced his first wife, Dee Dee, with whom he had 2 children, Jason and Jennifer. In 1986, he married Natalie Cole. By 1988, the Orioles were headed toward another last-place finish, while Detroit remained in the American League East race. On August 31, the final day of the trade deadline, the Tigers acquired Lynn for their pennant drive. Even the timing became complicated. Detroit had played that day in Chicago, and Lynn did not arrive there until after the deadline had passed. He was initially declared ineligible for postseason play because he had not physically reported to his new team in time. Commissioner Peter Ueberroth overruled the decision. The transaction itself had been completed before the deadline, he determined, so Lynn did not need to report in person before the cutoff. For a moment, the path to October was clear.
Then the entire dispute became irrelevant. Detroit finished one game behind Boston in the American League East. The team Lynn had expected to represent for his entire career advanced.
The team that acquired him for one final pennant push stayed home. There was no postseason confrontation, no dramatic return to Fenway with the season at stake. The standings closed that possibility before it could happen. Lynn played 27 games for Detroit in 1988, hitting 7 home runs, but the last race of his career ended with Boston one game ahead. His production declined in 1989. He batted .241 with 11 home runs in 117 games, and after the season, he became a free agent again. The San Diego Padres signed him in December. It was Lynn's first and only National League club, his 5th major league team, and the last stop in a career that had once seemed certain to remain in one place. At 38, he appeared in 90 games for San Diego in 1990. He batted .240 with 6 home runs and 23 RBIs. His final appearance came on October 3rd against the Los Angeles Dodgers. He had 1 at-bat and did not get a hit. There was no announced farewell tour, no carefully selected final day. When the season ended, Lynn became a free agent and waited. No team invited him to spring training in 1991. He continued to keep himself in shape in case an opportunity arose, but the call never came. After 17 seasons, Fred Lynn's major league career ended through the simple absence of another offer. Careers that begin as loudly as his rarely end with such little ceremony. The final totals give the story its proper scale. Lynn played 1,969 games.
He collected 1,960 hits, scored 1,063 runs, drove in 1,111, and hit 306 home runs. He made 9 All-Star teams and won 4 Gold Gloves. His career batting line was .283 with an .845 OPS. Baseball Reference credits him with 50.2 career wins above replacement. That places him well below the established standard for a Hall of Fame center fielder, and his career did not accumulate the volume usually associated with Cooperstown. The injuries mattered. So did the limited number of full seasons. Yet those limitations cannot reduce him to a case of what might have been. His peak was real. His longevity was substantial. For 7 straight seasons after leaving Boston, he surpassed 20 home runs. His defense in center field earned 4 Gold Gloves, and his .988 career fielding percentage reflected the reliability beneath the fearless style. Then there were the games that carried extra attention. In 15 postseason games, Lynn hit .407 with 2 home runs and 13 RBIs. In All-Star games, he hit 4 home runs and drove in 10. The sample was small because those stages offer only limited opportunities. Lynn repeatedly made his count. That is why the 1982 trophy matters. It answers the question raised by 1975. Fred Lynn did not peak as a rookie and spend the rest of his career fading from that height. In 1979, he produced a season that was stronger by several important measures. After the trade and the knee injury, he rebuilt himself into a consistent power hitter.
He became an ALCS MVP, made more All-Star history, and remained productive into his mid-30s. What changed was the shape around the performance. In Boston, Lynn's talent belonged to a single, powerful narrative: the gifted rookie, the Gold Dust Twins, Fenway Park, a pennant, and the 1975 World Series. Afterward, his accomplishments were divided among California, Baltimore, Detroit, and San Diego. The Angels gave him another postseason stage, but no pennant. Baltimore gave him a major contract, but no winning season to define the years. Detroit offered one last race, only to finish behind Boston. The injuries interrupted his accumulation.
The trade interrupted his identity, and the historic beginning made every later achievement compete with an image baseball had already decided to preserve. Lynn remained connected to the game after his playing career. From 1991 through 1998, he worked as a color analyst for ESPN, calling College World Series games and West Coast Major League broadcasts. He also raised money for Child Haven, a home for abused and neglected children, and for the Face Foundation. Recognition followed from the institutions that had shaped him. USC inducted him into its Hall of Fame in 1994. The Red Sox inducted him into theirs in 2002. The College Baseball Hall of Fame followed in 2007. Then, in 2012, Red Sox fans selected Lynn to the All-Fenway team. By then, Fenway Park had carried several more generations of players and memories.
The manual scoreboard was still there in the Green Monster, the grandstand still pressed close to the field. Center field still opened into the same demanding geometry Lynn had patrolled as a young man. For those who first knew him in that uniform, seeing his name attached to an all-Fenway team could bring back more than a list of statistics. It could bring back the way the park looked on a 1970s television screen. The expectation when a left-handed Lynn settled into the batter's box, and the belief that Boston's new center fielder might remain there for his entire career. He did not. But after all the other uniforms, the connection survived. Lynn has continued to appear at Red Sox games, entertaining clients from Fenway's Legends skybox. The organization claimed him through its Hall of Fame. The fans claimed him through their All-Fenway vote. And Lynn had never stopped claiming that identity for himself. "I'm a Red Sox," he said. That is where the career finally comes together. Fred Lynn was more than the first rookie to win an MVP, more than the player traded away from Boston, more than the brilliant center fielder whose body paid for his all-out style. His career contained another peak, a long second act, and some of the finest October and All-Star performances of his generation. The path did not become the one people expected in 1975. It moved through injuries, an unwanted departure, 4 more clubs, and a final spring when no invitation came. Still, when baseball eventually placed Fred Lynn back where memory had always kept him, it was at Fenway Park, the center fielder from that unforgettable summer, now understood through all the seasons that came after it.